Welcome to episode 9 of Technically Together. We are back. We're just gonna wing it this time around. Let's do it.
Wing it this time around? How many times have we not winged it?
I mean, we tried to not wing it in a couple of episodes.
Yes.
And then
we pop off and drop off for weeks on end, which is why, as we speak, I am making the invite for the next episode. It's going to be our new tradition because, as you have explained in the previous episode, but apparently is still a problem, you let weeks go by without us having an episode, and we never fix that problem.
Yeah, it's tough. But it's also, I mean...
Add guess. Hey, Isa.
No, but it's also like, again, it's being kind to ourselves and making sure that what we do isn't stressing it out because after all, we're doing it to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the next topic of me just doing this on my MacBook.
Yeah. Like, you have gone through a lot of trials and tribulations. Like, put the word podcast in anything Isa does, and Isa does podcasts, it's going to be a bit of a struggle.
It's tough. Okay. Let me lay the groundwork.
Hold on.
I am a normal...
Okay, go ahead.
I am a normal being. I am unlike you all who like listen to stuff and want it to be like high quality and all that. Like I have been known to not hear the song and just listen to the lyrics. Okay, that is me. And that being the case, it's like not being auditory. So that is where I'm coming from, right? And then like, honestly, even as a tech creator, and I'm gonna say this, I don't understand why it's so hard to set up. Like, you'd think it would be as easy as plugging in a mic and plugging in a better camera, but it really isn't. I do not have an old laptop. Mm-hmm. This is like last year's MacBook. I don't understand why stuff does not work. So the context of this is that I've been doing a lot of live streams and live podcasts, and on a paid project that I did, I literally kept dropping out, which, as you can imagine, was a problem because, I mean, it wasn't like some whatever project, right? And so I tried it again. I did another podcast, and the same thing happened even after like months of it not ever happening to me. And so it was weird because our internet is fine. And if I use any other device, it's fine. It's just when I use my like actual setup, it drops off. And so now the working theory is that it's the MacBook thing, that when I have something plugged in, it like messes with the Wi-Fi connection because I have people who has had that happen. Mm-hmm. Like, Jamie from Unbox, he's like, even an SD card reader, dude, it kept on dropping for me. And like, Mary streams with a powered dongle because so it's a power thing. The MacBook can't supply enough power to the dongle, and so like it messes with the Wi-Fi, and so you can't stream. But like, really, I am a tech reviewer and I have like the resources of every single tech person to ever talk to me, and we can't figure this out. Like, it's mind-boggling to me how frustrating the situation is. And even for me, like, can you imagine being someone who doesn't know anything and just wants to create and just like cannot figure this out?
Well, that's why years and years of experience goes into it. And like, you know, that's why, like you said the other night or last night, was it? Like, you were like, I should have just come to you first. That's what you told me about a couple of things. But that's trial and error and experience, all of those things. It happens, you know, and I totally get, I mean, you know, forgive me as the boyfriend, as the other half of this relationship, if I ever come off as a little bit frustrated whenever we talk through those kinds of things, because there are certain truths about tech that you only really get after you have used a myriad of products. We tend to think, or rather, I should say, casual users tend to think that tech is infallible, that the way that it is put together is meant to always work to its specification. That is simply not the case because all tech has varying degrees of decay rate. So this desktop that I have will have, it will be able to it will be able to handle literally everything I put at it because it has a very large power supply, a very large CPU, a very large GPU. So I can rely on it. But then my laptop, one of my laptops, which is a super powerful laptop to the point where it has 2 screens, you would think that it would have the same power output and abilities as this desktop because it is as expensive as it. The reality is it's not. The reality
But
is...
it's like, but I'm not trying to edit 4K video. I'm literally trying to be on a call and not drop connection. That's
well,
what's
that brings...
frustrating.
Indeed, I agree with you. And that brings me to yet another point, to a different point, like related, but a different point. Like I said, it has a certain power supply, it has a certain CPU and all of that stuff. The MacBook that you're using, and this is conjecture. Again, we don't know what the actual problem is. But you know, despite the fact that, oh look, maybe it happened right now. Okay, you did stutter for a little bit there for a second. Anyway, you would think that a laptop with the word pro in it would be able to handle pro level things. And even with the MacBook Pro 13 M1 that I have, the latest MacBook, yeah, I overload it from time to time and it stutters, and I've had it freeze on me a few times, and it's like, this shouldn't be the case. But then when you look at what Apple puts into their products, they literally are expecting you to just use it the way that they tuned it. 1 port, 2 ports, nothing else. And here are people like you, let's say pro level, pro-ish, prosumer, whatever the term is, pro level users, trying to put dongles in it, asking the power supply to do more than those 2 USB-C ports were meant to do in the first place. Like it.
I mean, I have 4.
Oh, you have 4, but still, you've managed to overload it, and that's weird. Like in your case, because you have the camera, the mic, and then power supply. My solution. Well, you already have a solution. You're getting a powered dongle, which is a good idea. That's a very good idea. Alternatively, what I would probably do is I would get adapters like, let me find this. Instead of using a dongle, since you have 4 ports, where is it? I don't want the podcast to have dead space, so I'm going to keep talking while you look for it. Just a USB-A to USB-C adapter. Instead of the dongle, you want a straight connection into the laptop rather than a dongle where the dongle could fail or ask too much of the power supply. This is all very nerdy stuff, but this is the trial and
because like again, Jamie plugged in an SD card reader and it was overloading his laptop.
Yeah, that like I said, there's still varying degrees of whether or not it's going to work, and that's the hard part about tech.
I guess my point is, end of day, this is what I do, so I'm going to find a solution for it. But for someone who wants to start creating, it's frustrating. Like, not everyone is technically a creator who creates on tech. They have things to say, and it would be great if, like, that would be shared in the digital world. That would be great, and people would merit from hearing those things. But, like, you're on and you want to do it, and literally, like, it won't connect to Wi-Fi. Like, what the heck, man?
Yeah, and I totally get why that's so frustrating. I guess one of the things I'm trying to share here is there's a certain point, and I know that there are a lot of creators out there, let's say TikTokers and even old school Viners, who are on this crazy level of I make content and I'm super famous for it, and they don't even know what M means on their camera. And it's like, it's so interesting because I'm not faulting them at all. It's just funny because I'm the one who read all the books. I'm the one who learned all the stuff. And when those creators, perhaps to some extent yourself, go through those issues, it's the transition from that kind of creator into the more technically informed, more nerdy type, that you start to learn some of that stuff to figure out your problems.
Which brings us to the next issue, though, and like this is something that I've learned through my YouTube journey, is that like you should not get lost in the technicalities and focus on your content. Like, sure, quality is good and king and really, but like it's YouTube, and what's important is getting content out there, right? So it's like I know someone who put out a video every day per year and has grown his channel. And who can afford like all the pro stuff, but insists on shooting with a point and shoot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Carlo, like literally, he can buy anything at a drop of a hat. But it's like he has bought like big ass cameras, but he's like, okay, no, I want to shoot with like my point and shoot and just sit down and be able to do it like easily. But I mean, I guess my point is like that should be like, I mean, fine, this is an option for people, right? This is me right now. It's literally opening up my laptop and doing this podcast, but it's like it's hard to be in the middle ground of wanting stuff easy and not being that technically inclined person, but wanting to level up. It's really a struggle. I guess
Yeah,
that's why like it's
that's what I'm trying
frustrating
to
so much.
express is like there's a
Yeah,
certain
because
transition point.
yeah, because I can do it easy. This is easy. Like I can literally do this on my phone if I wanted to. But then I'm like, okay, let's try to level up, and then everything goes to crap, and it's like, man, it's breaking my brain. It's so like
Yeah.
it's like
And like
it's tough.
here
It's tough.
I am, and we've had this discussion multiple times on the podcast where you have your mentality of it should just work, and then I
Mhm.
have to deconstruct every part of your setup to figure out hopefully what the one issue is we can fix so that everything gets fixed while
Yeah, I
being
mean,
5,000 miles away for the
yeah,
last year
like
and a fucking half.
I mean, if you watch this podcast, you'd know how many technical issues I've had, right? And like again, this is not a cheap setup at all. I mean, it's not the most expensive one, but it's not a cheap one either. Like from the humming to like the connection to like it's like it's
Yeah,
man.
which is why people like myself get in the weeds, because every time one of those little problems come up, we're like, this will never happen again, and we get the gear that literally will not do that. Like if it came down to it, if I had humming in my audio, I would get a little thing that reduces RF interference. Like it would literally be a tiny little item.
Yeah, but
You know what I mean?
like yeah, but that's you though. You can afford to get those things.
Yeah.
Like if literally I'm starting a podcast, okay, literally if all things considered, if it were just for this podcast, if I were not like a content creator, I can choose to invest in these things because I feel like eventually I'll use them for my work, right? But for a normal person wanting to start their own podcast for a hum, like no one's gonna buy that. Like no one's like I would much easier give up on my podcast dream than try to figure out the setup. Or again, I would much easier just like do this setup instead and drop the whole I'm leveling up, like drop the webcam, drop the mic, and just do my podcast this way just so I can do it versus like getting that headache.
Yeah,
You know?
this is where you and I very much differ. Because yeah, like if I wanted a podcast and I wanted it to be a certain level to which in my brain that level means it is good, it is something that can become popular, every time some little thing comes up, I would put in all the research, all of the whatever to make that work. But yeah, it's
Oh my gosh. So let's just share this to people. Before we started, we had a mini conversation on this. Literally, Joshua was like, try to at least plug in your mic. And I'm like, no, if I do that, we might run the risk of just like cutting off in the middle of the podcast. So I mean, I guess it also shows the difference in treatment and the difference in priority, right?
Yeah, and that could actually dovetail into what I feel like would be another good discussion, because I've actually gone through this myself. Like you made a very logical point. If I didn't say that earlier, I'll say it now. You made a very logical point. It's better to have a podcast at all rather than half of good audio. Half a podcast where the audio is good, but then it cuts out, we don't have a show at all. I get that. That was a very logical point, and I'm like, yeah, there you go. If anything, the reason why I was getting a little antsy is because it's almost 9 p.m. over here. I've had a very long day and I'm troubleshooting from 5,000 miles away. So that's that's something that we've talked about before. But I've actually gone through this recently where we as the creator, we as the people making the content, I get lost in very minute details that can ultimately can be explained away as overthinking. For example, you can't tell that because you use the leveler, the built-in leveler on your camera. Yeah. So I always have it level. Like I like seeing that green line, knowing that it's level. But with this new desk setup that I kind of have, not even new, it's just I updated the actual desk that's holding everything together. I was like, it would be convenient if I could just put my little switch pod here, and it's not quite at the level. Like, for example, I would have to raise the table in order for it to be level, but still pointed properly at me. But instead, I don't move the table at all, and I tilted it up ever so slightly. And a part of me is like, oh, that bothers me so much. Like the slight skew of the angle
I
is
thought you were talking about audio.
no.
I was
I'm talking about the camera.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I figured. Okay, yeah.
So the leveler, which is the horizon leveler on the camera, right now, like the left to right, the skew is fine, but the actual like tilt up and down is a tiny bit pointed upward.
It's funny you say that because you know this about my videos. I've been very particular about my background. So much so that when I visit and I shoot in your office, and at the time you were into the dark background, but like one accent light, I call it the YouTuber setup, like, because it's such a YouTuber look. Like when you see a tech YouTuber look, when you see a video and it's like dramatic lighting on the face and black and like dark background with like dramatic like RGB in the back, I'm like, yeah, tech YouTuber. You had that setup, and I refused to shoot with that setup because I was like, I don't want to feel like a tech YouTuber. And I was so particular. And I remember like always fussing about it. You know this. I've always fussed about like what my background looks like. I've always wanted it to look like, hey, welcome, let's have coffee. Although I'm not sure if that comes across in my videos. But my point is, I have fussed about it so much. Even in my room, even my current setup, even the current background I shoot with. Mm-hmm. But like, I've not ever had one comment on my background.
Exactly.
Ever in my whole YouTube.
Which is funny because this is the shoe is on the other foot. Because what did I used to say when you were fussing about the backgrounds? I was like, well, if you want the video done, get the video done. Yeah. But now the shoe's on the other foot because that's how you feel about this podcast when I'm trying to be like, let's upgrade the audio.
But it also really shows difference in priorities though, because like you've always been like someone who's done podcasts and like who's had a special soft spot in their hearts for it. Like this is my first ever podcast. I've always like, I used to not understand what podcasts were. Mm-hmm. And I have another one coming. Like it's another project. Like it's like,
you didn't tell me this.
I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
It's a secret. I don't know if I can say it. But my point is, like, I enjoy doing them very much. But, like, my enjoyment comes from the conversation and not the actual background stuff. Yeah. Which is how stuff starts for me, right? Like, even with videos, like, I remember having shot, like, certain viral videos, not even tech, with my iPhone a while back. And people were like, make more videos. And I'm like, I don't want to edit. Literally, I'm like, I don't want to edit. And like these viral videos were to the level of when I started work at my tech publication, I'd go out and meet people and they'd be like, aren't you the girl who did that video? Like it was that level of viral. And they'd be like, I want another video. And I'm like, I'm not editing. I'm not shooting any more skits. I'm too tired. Like I can't. I don't have the patience. And now I edit videos for a living. It's funny. But like that's the process for me. That's like the step. And you've seen this in a number of things that I've done.
I've witnessed it for the past how long? Like 4?
Yeah, 3? No, exactly.
It's like your literal baby steps. Like it's fetus steps is what it is. I mean, because what it is like, because here I am thinking like, okay, so you want the clouds, but you need to walk among the dirt to get there. And
I don't want any more dirt. I'm wearing white. I'm wearing white.
But that's the thing. Like you always had a reason as to why you don't want to do XYZ, or why you don't want to do ABC to get to XYZ.
No, not yet. Let me qualify that with a yet. Why I don't want to do XYZ yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I said. And yet it's fetus steps is what I'll call it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that I don't want to do them, period. It's that I don't want to do them yet. Mm-hmm. And then I eventually do it. Yeah. But I mean, like right time, everything in its right time, right? I mean,
I guess, but like, in those moments when you're fussing over a background or anything like that, it just delays the actual creation of the video. And, and the headache you don't want to have for this podcast right now is me going, well, we don't really want the headache of not creating the video in the first place.
Yeah, but skipping those steps is how you get with like really expensive gear and not knowing how to use them or utilize them. Which again, if you can do, good for you. You can afford it. I can't afford that. I can't afford to buy gear which is like super expensive and not even utilize what they do.
Oh no, I'm not
Like
talking
that's
about. I'm not talking about purchasing things. I'm talking about like.
no, but I know, but like it's one example.
Yeah,
One
sure.
example of the baby steps, one example of the situation is how I used to shoot with a point and shoot. And like the logical thing for me to do was to level up,
Mhm.
which you pointed out, which was true. But like I explained to you, I was like, I can't even figure out how to shoot with this point and shoot and what it does. And so I didn't want to level up to an actual camera yet because I felt like if I did that, I just get lost in like having a new thing and not knowing how to work it.
Mhm.
Like,
That's fair.
so I mean, I guess that's for me. For me, and you know this about me. Every time I level up my tech, which is funny because sure, phones and wearables, level up, reviews, right? But you know this about me. Even for the tech that I shoot with and I edit with for the creation of my own content, I take very small baby steps when
fetus
upgrading.
steps.
Yes, because I feel like I need to absorb how to learn how to use this before I move on to something bigger that I need. I only upgrade my tech when I feel like what my current device has, there are specific things that it does not serve my purpose and it is worth it to get it.
Yeah, I guess in my case it's just and first of all, let me just say real quick, I totally get the do you or do you not have the resources to do it. Like, let me just put that out there right now. I'm not trying to be some I have money type person saying just get this, just get that. So let me just put that out there real quick. All right. I'm not saying that for you, Isa. I'm saying
I
that
get
for,
you. I get
yeah,
you.
I'm saying
No,
that for everyone else.
definitely, it's not about the money. It's not
Yeah.
about the money. It's
It's
about the
just
like.
that the reason why, and here's the speaking of money though, here's what I always used to say, and you know this phrase, like, we don't buy money to add to our lives. We buy money to make the things we would already do easier.
Yes.
Or we make money.
Exactly.
Not, did I say buy money? We make
Yes.
money.
I was like,
We make
so we're buying
money.
crypto.
No, I'm gonna do that one day. We make.
I have like a tiny amount.
No,
I
I'm
don't know, like
once I'm done with my debts, and
oh,
maybe when
crypto actual do it. I
yeah.
just bought it like for kicks to try to figure it out.
Oh no
Like how
no.
does this work?
I'm gonna invest like on a monthly basis based upon
Oh,
the market. Like
I just I bought like I don't know $100 worth. And I was just like,
I want to
what
do
does
that.
this
I
do
want
to
to do
my bank
100
account?
every month. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, so that's actually a good crypto plan,
Yeah.
which I was told to do, but I'm not doing
Yeah.
because I can't like so okay, this ties back to what we were talking about. I can't really do something unless I understand it fully. I'm not sure if you've noticed this. Like I
No,
have to understand
I've
it fully
then that's the
for me
point I
to
was about to
jump
make.
in.
Like, I totally understand this because the reason why I have to gnash my teeth sometimes, and when I live through what you're going through, is that in my case, once I run into a problem enough times, it requires solving. And in your case, you justify that it's not, and I don't mean justify in a bad way. You justify that it is not something that requires the resource management yet. So then come months, weeks, months, and potentially years of you still running into that wall and lamenting it out loud every time. And I'm just here like, we know the solution. Can
No,
we
but
finally do the solution?
it's also like if it's for example a problem of in body stabilization, right? Which I built my channel for like years on a camera without in body stabilization. It irks me, but not once have I ever gotten the comment that my video is shaky.
Mm-hmm.
Not once. And it's like people are like, wow, how do you get those shots? What camera do you use? And I'm here lamenting on the fact that I feel like my shots are shaky, but then people never really noticed until I leveled up and I'm like, woo, smooth shots. Not one person noticed. Like even me upgrading my camera, not one person noticed. Until I like screamed that this is what I'm doing now. And even then it was such a minuscule thing in the grand scheme of things. Like for me to upgrade just because I was annoyed at in-body stabilization would have been like, it's not ripe enough. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like I would just have been pissed. I'm like, really, I upgraded because of this, and no one's
Well,
like,
I would
no one cares.
actually levy a different example, which would be the laptop that you're using now, despite the problems you have right now. It's
Mhm.
your editing and your work time have dramatically gotten better. Your consistency has shot through the roof now that you don't have to deal with an older MacBook that you refuse to give up just because it was able to render. But in our line of work, the faster the render, the faster the work gets out.
But see, I didn't want to upgrade when that was happening because I wasn't a full-time YouTuber when
Yeah,
you
it
were
was a different time
suggesting
for
that.
sure. It was a different time for sure.
So my point is, it wasn't ripe. I sure it was annoying me that it was slow, but also it wasn't my job description to edit videos. So why
Mhm.
should I?
Mhm.
You know? So again, it wasn't ripe. It was a problem, but it wasn't a problem that was my like priority to solve
Mhm.
because it still worked.
I think
And
I just was not brought up, but I was trained. And this is the thing, you know this, like everyone knows this. I was literally trained like to run channels. So whenever and plus I worked at a company where whenever there was even the smallest thing, they being the powers that be in whatever company I was at would tell me like, we don't like that, fix it. So here I am being trained to literally
yeah,
find the answers for all of those things. And the thing is, the thing I was trying to say earlier is clearly that bleeds into the life I lead now, because here I
yeah,
was thinking like, is it weird that my camera is slightly askew just to make life easier for me? Like right now, it's up.
uh-huh,
It's up. Like
uh-huh.
to other people they would prefer down or level, but I'm going up.
Literally, I'm recording on a MacBook camera, babe.
I
Your
know.
camera is fine.
But here's the
Like,
mentality of like the whole like the previous life that I had is like I was trained and taught, and in a lot of ways this is true, but it's different for everybody obviously, that if the quality is not at a certain way, then that lowers the ability of your content to be seen and enjoyed, like on a grander scale.
I guess for me, and this seeps into everything I do, at that point where let's talk about like the editing and the old laptop, right? At that point, me creating videos were an extra. So
Yeah.
it was better to have a video as an extra than not have a video at all.
Yeah.
So no matter what I do, like it was like even way more than what I was expected to do. So no, I wasn't like
Yeah.
trying to
It
be the
was
best.
different for
I just
me.
wanted to create one.
It was different
Create
for
something.
it was different for me obviously because it was my life. Um but clearly it clearly it's a mentality that has been so ingrained in me that I apply it to everything even now. So yes, I apply it to you even, and that's why I might get a little antsy whenever we have those discussions. But of course,
Like
I even levy it at myself. It is my overthinking. And today on Twitter, I was actually talking to people and they were giving me their thoughts on like what angle is good for the camera. And I was like, ultimately, I know that no one cares. And I keep thinking to myself, why does it matter so much to me? And it's because I
I
was
mean,
trained to think that if one person in the comments says, why does this look weird? Then I was trained to believe that that one comment was a sample size of close to 100 to 1,000 other people probably feel the same way.
oh, I completely disagree because if I thought like that, my comment section would like get the better of me. So if I thought like that, it would be a sad thought to know that there are still people who feel like I shouldn't be doing what I do by virtue of just me being me. So,
Well, and that's a grander that is a problem on a much grander scale of people already.
yeah, but like applied to
I'm
the
talking
comment.
about like my camera's 10 degrees off and one person points
Yeah,
out.
again, but it's the same thing though applied.
Yeah,
Like it's the same
ultimately
thing though applied,
yeah, exactly.
and
Ultimately
that's
it
why
balloons into a much bigger
yeah,
problem. Yeah.
and that's why like I
Which is why I don't want you to ever have to go through that. So I'm like, get this, that dude this way. Like,
yeah, I mean, I guess ultimately it's like, okay, I still believe though, babe, that even if I didn't upgrade my laptop and I had the workflow I had now, the returns for um like I still believe that it's a higher input of me being efficient and not the machine being efficient. You get what I mean? Like
There's
I have
diminishing
leveled up
returns in
not
that
just my
mentality, but I
tech.
get what you mean.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
diminishing
I've
returns, but
leveled.
I get it.
Yeah, I've leveled up my tech and I've leveled up my workflow.
Mhm.
But I still believe that even if I didn't level up my tech, even if I'm shooting with my 2009 MacBook, like the efficiency will have been higher because of my workflow and not so much the tech.
So I guess here, okay, so this is basically a therapy session for, well, the both of us, but for me. The moment I miss an embargo because my laptop was still rendering and taking half an hour to an
Mm-hmm.
hour of rendering, not even putting on top of that the amount of time it takes to upload said video before embargo lifts, the shame and guilt I would have felt of not doing my job. And again, it was my job. It wasn't your job.
But
The
yeah,
like that shame and guilt it clearly, because of this conversation we're having, has given me some sort of like post event like agita.
yeah. Again, like it was your job description
Yeah,
at the time.
but I still have that mentality with everything, and it's
I've shifted. It's like I'm slowly but surely inching towards the whole we're YouTubers, and literally we started and switched to being YouTubers so that we can enjoy our work and enjoy our life and enjoy the process. So I'm slowly but surely trying to shift to that mindset. Like I'm gonna take the day off and shoot TikToks. So I mean,
you see, that's the thing. Like, even if I were to take the day off and just tell myself I'm going to read my Kindle, and then I
mm,
look back on the fact that I probably just read 10 pages, I'm like, why didn't you read 30? Like, I'm here, I am like still self-effacing myself.
that's my problem sometimes. Like it's like Friday night and Thursday night I finished editing 2 videos.
Mhm.
And I'm like, holy crap, I'm so awesome today. Wow. Let me rest and watch TV. And I'm sitting there on the couch in front of the TV and my brain won't shut off.
Mhm.
It's like what I need to do tomorrow, what blah, blah, blah. It's like it's a conscious effort to turn off now. And it like
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like that applies to everyone now because of the work from home setup.
sure.
It's honestly tough, but
Even in my downtime, if I play a video game, I'm like, I'm going to be the best at this fucking video game.
like
And
I
it's
feel like
stressful. It's not relaxing.
you know how there is this meme, I don't know if it's a meme or like online advice where they go like you should have like X number of hobbies, one that earns you money, one that I
Mhm.
can't remember, but like there's one hobby that's supposed to like relax you or something. And it's
Mhm.
like now when I want to turn my brain, so I have aquariums now and I'm growing my food.
Yeah, you're growing
That
veggies.
makes sense. I'm growing veggies and mushrooms. So like when I'm stressed, I literally water my plants, and it helps me turn off. But that's something that I never thought about before. Like having something to do that's not work, especially because in today's time, everything like you wanna relax, you watch Netflix on your computer. You wanna work, you're on your computer. You know what I mean? Like you're always on your phone or your computer. That it's sort of like psychologically, I feel like that's still linked in your brain.
Yeah.
You know, you're not supposed to work on your bed because like that's supposed to like register in your brain as a space to rest. But then like if you keep working there, like it will stress your brain out when you're trying to rest.
Mhm.
So like I feel like that's sort of a thing still. So it's like I'm trying to find things that I'm not doing on my phone.
See, I
And
don't
it's
know. I have no idea what those things are for me anymore, because working in the tech world means that even the things that I could use to have relaxing time, I've probably reviewed before. Like, it's probably been something I've talked about in a piece of content, and yeah, that's the thing. Like, I I want there to be something like that. I think that's the reason why I'm so happy that I'm finally going back to the gym every other day. So I'm happy that there's a third space. If anything, it's a third space. Maybe not.
Yes, a third space.
Yeah, maybe it's not an activity that is devoid of tech because I still have headphones on and my phone and whatnot. But still, it's a third space. So I have bed, work, or office for work if I ever go. Bed, home, work, gym. So I've been very grateful to be able to go back. But yeah, segue from gym, like I'd mentioned the gym, you, me, and David, our good friend David Himmel.
We're getting abs.
Yeah, we called it abs.
Buying them, clicking buy, and then ordering them, having it shipped to my house.
No. we're calling it abs and subs. So hopefully, well, the thing is, okay, I have the motivation right now. I have what I'm hoping is enough discipline to be able to keep it up for the next number of months up until I get to see you. Because my motivation, and I've said this on the show before, is that the next time you see me, I want to be literally irresistible. And I also want to look different, like, than the last time you saw me in a good way. So like, that's always been my thing. I love that it's the morning for you and you're yawning.
I know, it's like, I'm sorry. It's like I finished my coffee, so it's like I'm trying to like channel the energy.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up, but I mean, babe, I feel like this is our moment. I feel like if we put our heads together and be motivated enough and push each other, we can do it. I don't know why it's so hard, though, to be perfectly honest. I don't know why it's so hard to get abs.
It is, okay.
Not that I've ever really tried before,
yeah.
But it's like, it's just food. Why can't I say no?
That's what I was about to say, is a lot of the time, the reason why it's so hard is because the world is not controlled. So it's harder for us to be controlled.
So this is what I guess I've been seeing it in myself and my brother mostly, about how like we're trying not to be so, we are Filipino. So like culturally, it's, this, culturally, food is such a big thing. It's not just like sustenance, it's like community, family, like socialization. Like these are all things that food symbolize for us. But I'm seeing this more and more with myself and my brother, that it's like trying to disengage with the idea that food is like, it's like it is mainly and should be sustenance. So like there are so many underlying issues with food. Like I feel like as a culture, and I might get hate for this, that like Filipinos have an issue with food, and how like, that's such a loaded statement, mostly because like, this is a third world country after all, So it's not like you can tell a person who's like struggling with food and eating so much rice that, you eat way too much carbs when rice is like the cheapest form of food, and like our minimum wage is this and that. So like, I'm just gonna put that out there, that that's a thing.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm saying this from a place of of privilege, where I can be like, oh, I'm not eating healthy enough, because like for majority of the people, and like it's culturally packed, it's emotionally packed, it's socio-politically packed. Everything is political. So I'll put it out there. Like I recognize this, but I'm speaking from my perspective now, and like from the perspective of myself trying to have a healthier relationship with food, and not like all the heavy things that like food and politics. It's like,
Well, okay. Quick interjection.
I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, quick interjection though, based upon what you just said. I've had that thought as well, because here I am buying $10 loaves of keto bread. A regular loaf of bread made with all the typical ingredients is like $1. So here I am going for $10 bread. Yeah. And I have thought about this because you have mentioned this to me before, that some people kind of, what's the term? They are tone deaf to this whole idea that like they can teach other people how to be healthy, but they don't quite understand that the people they're trying to teach literally don't have the resources to have any of what they have. And I totally get that. And I totally get that. And that in those cases, yes, it's terrible. In my case, though, it's like just because I have access to the things that I can get to make myself happy or happy, healthier and yet happy, I'm I'm not I'm not going to apologize for having that because I'm not literally taking food off of your plate. I'm only
I
putting
don't
certain foods on mine.
I don't think people are asking you to apologize for it, and if they do, that's just weird. I'm just I had to say that, and I wanted to say that because it is a conversation that
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I want to be having in the context of my life, in the context of what's happening here, in the context of silent protests where I'm at in the context of what's happening and in the context of like what people are able to do right now
Yeah,
to
yeah.
protest a situation. So I'm just gonna put that out there.
And I
That's
think
a
the reason
silent undertone,
why
and that's why I have to say that.
and I think the reason why I just wanted to respond to that real quick is because like I always say, you have this sort of worldly empathy, this worldly level of empathy that is, I think you're the only person I know who has as much of it as you do. And that's great. And for you to point out what privilege you do have in the context of where you live and the type of world you live in and the type of country you live in, that's great and all. But I guess it's like, you're only talking about what you're able to do. It's not like you're trying to tell other people to do what you do, knowing that they can't do it. So pointing out your privilege is okay, but I hope you don't feel like it makes you feel bad that you have that privilege.
I know. I mean,
It's like when I
I
was
try
talking to
to.
CJ, and if he's listening,
Mhm.
shouts out to CJ. I still do this when I talk to them because a lot of my experiences have actually been colored by the fact that I have gone all over the world due to my job. And it's a very enviable position. So when we're in discussions about stuff and we talk about, let's say, Japanese food, and I bring up the thought of like, oh, I had that in Tokyo, it's dope. Like it's a weird sentence to put out there for people who have never been to Tokyo and they might feel bad about it. So I always end up saying like, oh, I'm sorry, like, I hope you don't mind. I'm just saying like it's in Tokyo, it was dope. And CJ at one point puts his hand on my chest and he goes, don't you ever apologize for your success. Don't you ever apologize for what you're able to do because of how hard you had to get there.
Yeah, no, I'm not sorry about it. I
Mm-hmm.
just recognize the
Yeah.
privilege, which
It's
is
fine to recognize.
what you should do with privilege. The least you can do is recognize it
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledge that not everyone is as privileged as you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and try to do something with that privilege. I mean, I like realistically, it's not like every piece of content I make can like cater to that end. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And not even that. It's not like I. It's not like I have to scream out that hey, I did this behind the scenes. You know, like I have shifted from like trying to figure out from screaming at the world and saying this is that to realizing and recognizing that the help I can put out in the world doesn't need to be screamed at the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Not everyone
Um
has to know what you're
yeah,
doing.
but it's also I feel like I'm in a weird sort of slice of the world living my life and for lack of a better term, being the socially aware because I am very aware of what's happening and I am making it a point to be aware of what's happening around me in my situation, in my country. But also at the same time, I'm in a very weird space where I'm with you and like we're in this space speaking on tech in a podcast that we have that won't have the listeners from my side of the world, but will probably have more listeners from your side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And like I always try to say these things, not for anything, but just like to explain that this is happening and that this is the privilege I have and putting into context the things I say.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Like I live in a constant like tug of war because I am in a very privileged space, the tech industry, the tech creator industry. I mean, if you think about it, that's a very privileged space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who can say that like they can touch all these things, these tools, you know? When I also live in the same space as people not being able to go to school because they can't buy a $100 phone.
Mm-hmm.
So for a lot of the things that I do, there's always that tug of war in my head. And that's why I always say that, like, I feel like the bare minimum is like to just acknowledge that. And that's why I'm always like very vocal and putting that reality out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just because to add to someone's consciousness that this is normal for me, but to realize and to remember that it's not for everyone, you know. Anyway, let's go back to food. So I guess my point is, like, it's just that there are a lot of, like, and I've realized this growing up, there are a lot of unhealthy food relationships that personally me, like, let's just like put it at a like personal level so it's easier to explain, right? Like for me personally, there are a lot of unhealthy food relationships that I have built. I realize this, and these are things that I'm trying to unlearn. I mean, I think they've manifested in very weird ways. Like, for example, like now I have a thing about like having so much extra food. Like, just get enough for you. Like, what, like, why does there need to be excess? I don't understand. And I'm reacting this way as someone who's always wanted excess, as someone who's been trained that, like, for you to finish a meal, you should be like just about to puke. You know? So it's
Well,
like
we were taught that by our elders in a way.
that's
Keep
a
eating,
fiesta
keep eating.
culture.
Yeah.
That's a fiesta culture.
Can I throw a wrench in that mentality though? And it's really great that
Uh-huh.
you recognize it, but also I'm probably going to go to Vegas next month, just to like hang out with some friends and to give myself like a it's not a staycation because I'm going somewhere else, but it's just me. Like it's a personal
Mhm.
vacation. Knowing as also a diabetic that I shouldn't have excess, but you know, when I go to Best Friend, that's the name of Roy Choi's restaurant in Las Vegas, I gotta try everything. Like I've been wanting to go there for so long, and we got
Yeah, so see,
you, me, and Kogan. We went to Momofuku. We had to try like half a dozen things because that was our first time there, and it was like we gotta try.
yeah, but I mean, but like, see, but that's, I mean, okay. For example, I'm just gonna have to point this out. I don't understand why servings in the U.S. are so big.
I was gonna say if you haven't
No
already.
one should.
If you already have an unhealthy, let's put it this way. This was a phrase I was thinking of way back when you said it first. Food is a big thing, but also food is big here.
Yeah, no, I just, I mean, you always say this, but we can finish it later on. But that's not the point, though. It just feels like such a waste.
Mhm.
And like, I'm sitting here trying to be conscious about like not thinking about food as an excess, like just thinking about food as sustenance. Like it's just food. I'm not gonna let it rule me. Like I get it because I get. You know me. I get mad when I'm hungry, but I'm trying not to let food rule me.
Yeah,
But then,
which I've tried to say before.
yeah, but it's like I don't understand why servings are that big.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if you tell me that we can eat it later, it's diminishing returns. You know what I mean?
Well, it doesn't taste
Like,
as good the next time.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, why can't I just buy something at half a price, at half a serving? Because that's what a normal human would need as sustenance.
Yeah.
Like, and it frustrates me. Like that thought now frustrates me. Like, why do I need something that's as big as my face?
Well, here's also speaking from the American perspective. The food industry has created these incorrect notions of how much a person needs or should have. The 2,000 calorie limit. I just had a big dinner.
Wait, what 2,000 calorie limit?
Not limit, but 2,000 calorie. Well, yeah, kind of it's a limit. They say in America, the FDA says that 2,000 calories is the average amount of calories that a person should have. But this takes
That's a lot.
That takes into account 2,000 calories, considering I am a 157-pound smaller Asian man compared to a very, very large Caucasian, like 250-pound 7-footer. That's an average. And a lot of people don't realize that it's an average. So you should figure out what that number is for yourself. The thing is, what's your plan on the Lose It app? How
Mine
many
is
calories?
like 1,400 calories, and
Guess-
that's already a cut.
Yeah, guess what? That's mine too. Because I know I can run on that amount of calories.
Yeah, and so my brother was explaining.
There are a lot of people right now who are thinking like 1,400, like Josh is killing himself. No, I'm not.
It's first of all, like, we're smaller. But secondly, it's like my brother was telling me, like, for example, this is your calorie allotment. So my brother has this like really nice way of explaining stuff. I love it because like I'm like how, which also tells me that my diet, like, is very carb heavy, and I really have to up my protein. Like, it's
this is
crazy.
my only carb today.
Yeah, it's crazy how low my protein levels are. But so he's like, okay, so this is your calorie allotment, but like when you exercise, the more you exercise or you move, like that, like, raises.
Yes.
So this is your allotment without moving, being sedentary. That's your bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
But like as you go, right? Like it like, so when you move, but like putting it into context though, how many people just sit the whole day?
Yeah. How many have for the past year?
Exactly. So I mean,
can I say something without it being facetious? I didn't know you didn't know that.
What?
That your calorie count is based, it's a TDEE. It's based upon,
I mean, I know
if
that.
you were just lying down and doing nothing, that's the amount of calories you would burn. So that's the
Yeah,
reason
I know
why,
that.
yeah, that's the reason why exercising.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that, but like how he explained it was like such an easy analogy.
Well, that's the other reason why I love that app that we're using now with David, because when you put in your exercise, it automatically adjusts your calorie intake. So my strong lifts workout the other day shaved off 300, so it gave me 1,700 calories throughout the day.
So I'm just sad because it won't connect to the Mi Band, which is what I want to be using.
Well, okay, this is a little bit roundabout, and this is again me being nerdy tech. The Mi Band connects to Google Fit. Lose It connects to Google Fit, so it can connect through all of those.
Oh. I'm gonna do that. Thank you.
If what you're talking about is activity level and steps, that's how you get it. Is that Lose It can connect?
Okay, that solves my problem because I was privilege solution was I was gonna switch into a watch, the Apple or the Fitbit, because those automatically connected. So see, but that's my point though. Like, I tell you now, I've been in like a lot of talks where like I meet these women creators that I actually look up to. I'm like, oh my god, yeah, hi, and they're like, hey, I know you. I watched your video, and you know what video it would be? It's a fact. You know what video it was?
No.
Always the Fitbit video. Because women will not look at like, so to them it's like the Apple Watch or the Fitbit seems less threatening than other tech. Because it's true, like even then, like how do I connect this? Like I would never have thought that.
Like,
and even then, what if I were on the iPhone?
Same thing. Connects to Apple Health. Apple Health connects to.
I didn't even know that.
So again, if this goes full circle. Here I am with the years of experience that I've gone through, like literally, like diving in the weeds, really playing in the dirt to learn these little intricacies. Because that's how my strong lifts, showed up on my Lose It without me trying. Is because strong lifts connected to Google Fit, and Lose It looks at Google Fit.
I can do strong lifts too. Okay,
you've been the envy of both me and my brother because we have seen your IG stories of you having a rack at your house. Now granted, I need my third space, I've learned.
Yeah.
So working out at home is just not working for me.
When we eventually live together, can we just like set up our gym?
Absolutely.
I don't want to go out ever.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay, let me rephrase that. I don't think I'll ever be comfortable being in a place where everyone's just like sweating their bodily liquids. It's okay. Let me rephrase. Once you experience having the setup at home and just like deciding in your pajamas that you wanna squat in your bare feet, just because becomes a whole different world.
I mean, sure.
I should be exercising more, but my point is
that's what I was about to say was like my worry, and like I just said, the whole working out at home thing is just not working, is because unless I have iron will discipline, it's very easy for me to be like, I'll do it tomorrow.
But I think it also will help because like we now have a designated gym space.
Yeah.
So once you enter that space, like it's the gym.
Mhm.
So I think that also helps. Like, because I feel like just having like, I mean, it worked for you. The like, for example, the kettlebell thing in your office, like it worked for you. But for me, kasi
No,
stuff like that.
let me correct you there. I very much did not do it as much as you think.
But it worked for you for a tiny bit.
Yeah.
You were like, every time I shoot, I do this, and like it worked.
Yeah. Until the stress of the work kept me from
Yeah,
even
but
taking
for me,
breaks.
that can't work. It's built. It's too
close.
intertwined. Like I need so like right now, like I have a like there's a spot where I water my plants. There's a I mean I again like I'm just lucky to be living in this house, right? But like so when I'm there, it's the gym.
Mhm.
So it's like it works because like that's where we all do the gym stuff. Which
I will say this.
Fortunately is under my room, so my brother cannot work out when I'm recording anything. So he literally just texted me asking if I were doing a podcast because then he can't gym.
I mean,
Drawback.
I mean, if he wants to start now, he can. We have like 5 minutes left. But the I will the experience of going back to a place after all of this COVID craziness. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so easy to feel motivated right now, is because here I am going back to a place after not being able to for over a year and a half. And it's really nice because I just go, and I sincerely hope that the habits, I think I've said this a few times, I hope the habits that we have cultivated because of COVID stick around and be part of our regular lives. Because one thing, to your credit, to your point of going to a place where everyone's kind of sloppy and sweaty and all of that, there is a culture at any time, the one near me, the one that you've been to, there's a culture at any time of each and every person cleaning their area so thoroughly when they're done. And I love it. It's so nice to see. And it makes the whole venue feel like a better place to be. And I hope that sticks around.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I want, no, I guess, not I guess. I want to end this podcast on a note of gratitude. Like the pandemic, oh, you're gonna be so proud of me for saying that. The pandemic, it's crazy and it's turned everyone's life upside down, but glass half full, you know. Again, privileged to be in the position where as a creator I can work at home with ease. The glass half full, what are you grateful for in this pandemic? I mean, that sounds like tone deaf, but like in a glass half full way, in the last few months,
Despite everything that has gone
sucky,
on, what is something you're grateful
what
for?
is it that you're grateful? Wow, I have a penchant for phrasing things in a very tone deaf way. That's not what I meant.
No, not at all. Like
but like yeah,
give yourself some credit. You might have thought it was tone deaf, but you also front loaded it with so much exposition about your position. This is what I mean.
yeah, but
This is the reason why I brought up the whole like knowing your privilege thing is nice, but when it takes up half the conversation every single time, it's tiresome. And no one is vilifying you for not saying it once or twice.
I'm not trying to explain myself. I'm trying to tell people that we are all privileged. So let's all be conscious of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my point in saying that every time. Because if I inform one person of their privilege the way I was, that would have been worth it. Because that will allow you to look at the world in a different worldview. That it's allowed me to be more grateful of where I am.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from.
No, and I get that. I
mean, don't get me wrong. I'm very self-assured. You know this.
Yeah, and I'm just
unless I crumble in irreparable tiny little pieces, which only those closest to me will ever see.
Which is what I'm saying is like I don't know. I guess the reason why I'm putting it in those terms is because the level of, I don't know, unless someone is pointing out that I was tone deaf or I somehow am forgetting my privilege, then I'm like, oh, I do understand it. Let me explain. But to have to say it every single time I talk about something is, it's not, I'm not trying to say that it's not worthwhile. I just think that we do live in a time where everyone is walking on so many eggshells, no matter where you are.
I feel like some eggshells are justified.
Oh
I
yeah,
feel
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, let me just put it this way. Right now, people are literally dying outside of my house in where I am because there are no emergency rooms. People are getting treated in their cars.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my reality. I may seem like fun and happy where I am at, but the reality of where I am and the amount of people in my proximity that have died
Mm-hmm.
is unreal. I am at a place where COVID per day is at the maximum from all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
We're at the same level as India.
Yeah.
It's just that they have more people. But if you do the math, that is the level we are at. And that is the reality that I'm trying to be conscious of.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't just wake up and be like, look at this phone and look at this relationship and this is my LDR and like all these nice things and just brush that aside. Like
No,
to my
you
mind,
never have though. It's
I
always in your
know,
brain.
but because it's a conscious decision that I not do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a conscious decision that I recognize that every time I can.
Yeah, and
Because
I guess in my brain, there's a difference between you making, let's say, content, like making content or living your life in such a way that is very informed and very, let's say, casual is not the word, but clearly you're living your life and you're not hurting anybody else. Like that's the thing. You're literally not hurting anybody by just doing what you do. That is different to me than someone who's actively saying be better, cook better food, like stop feeling sorry for yourself when they're talking to the people who have literally no privilege and have nothing. Like there's a difference between those two things, and between those two, the level of self-explanation and recognizing of privilege is kind of the same, and it's, you know, like we are literally not hurting anybody is what I'm trying to say.
yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that I'm not hurting anyone with my normal content or if I review my phones. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to do better.
Yes.
And I want to take it a step up. And that's just me. I'm not putting this bar on anyone. That's just me for myself. I get that when I do my content without speaking out on the injustices in the world, that's okay. I get that. But I want to do better in that I not only want to do my content, I want to, at the very lowest, inform of the situation of the world,
Mm-hmm.
of the situation where I'm from, to inform what is happening, or at the very least show that this is from my side of the world a very privileged stance.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's perfect. Like the way you just put it makes total sense. And I think that's sort of like the explanation that I was hoping to kind of hear, because I guess my what I'm trying to say is I hope you're not actively doing that every time because you somehow feel guilty, because you somehow feel shame.
No, I don't feel guilty. I just feel like, what can I do?
Mm-hmm.
You know? How? What do I do with this fact, knowing that this is fact?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And like, I guess as a creator, the only really biggest thing, easiest thing for me is to just like put that out there and be visible. Like, to be seen, that situation, for that situation to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So with
And
all
it's
of
often
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
no, and it's often why I do why I say what I say, or why I do what I do, because it's it's all about being seen, and it's all about speaking that truth and putting that out in the world.
Yeah. So having explained through all of that, and yeah, like I was never, because that was my only thing, was like I hope that being informed and being able to express those things is the best part of it. I just don't want us to feel guilty or shameful for what we do have. That's what, because gratitude is all over that situation. Is number one, we're grateful for what we do have, but we're also grateful because we know that other people unfortunately can't. So be grateful for what we have, because obviously in the world it's not easy to be where we are, to get to where we are, because other people are suffering. We have to understand those things. So that's all I'm saying, because I know that I have felt that sometimes, just personally. No one's ever told me that I should feel shameful for having been places, but I don't want anybody else to feel bad just because I talk about it, and I don't want to make anybody feel small because I talk about it. Which is where CJ's whole thing of like, don't ever apologize for that.
But like for me, it's not so much feeling small or comparing myself to what the situation is. It's recognizing the privilege I am in.
Yeah, that's what I
And
mean.
the privilege that I have, not just in relation to where I am, but the privilege I have to be heard.
Yeah.
So it's really more of that. I mean, it's not like I run around and like talk about this and make this my whole.
Yeah, you don't punch
shtick.
down at all. You don't put.
No,
you never
not
do.
punching down.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's also not. It's also not. Like if I could choose to, I could choose to make videos on the situation. You know what I mean? It's like, but that's not what I do though. But I try to be conscious of those things because I feel like these are not normal circumstances, and under normal circumstances, they were already dire to begin with. But it's like, what else can we do to help? How do I, as a as a Filipino, how do I add to this very broken puzzle?
Yeah.
Well,
it's with all of that, and with all of that explained, and I feel like, sorry to anybody who's listening if, that went back and forth for a long time, but this is how we sort of talk through the feelings that we have on both of our ends. I don't remember completely if you actually expressed what you were trying to express before we got into this conversation of what you're grateful for.
No, I just wanted to say that let's end this podcast on a note of gratitude, like in the past.
And I couldn't remember if you actually did that already.
Oh, I haven't.
Okay,
I'm asking you.
Go. Oh, you wanted to ask me. I am really grateful for the life I lead, because it sucks that so many people have been affected over the last year. And even through bouts of laziness and, not being as consistent or maybe disciplined as I know I should be, I hope, I want to put it out there that I never take the fact that I have what I have for granted. And I'm very grateful to be able to have it. I finally started writing in my Notion, where I like write down. I'm not great at it yet, in that I haven't been doing the night entries. There's a morning and a night entry, but I've done a few or two or three morning entries, and usually I end up saying stuff like, I'm grateful. Like, for example, that one morning when you and David woke me up. It was 5. My alarm is at 7, and I wake up to my phone blowing up because David and Issa decide to have their own conversation in our group chat.
It is a group chat.
It is, and I should have muted my phone. I'm not saying it was your fault. So I woke up to that, but then in my journal, I said I was very grateful for the two of you, because, I mean, I have you guys. I have you. I have my best friend David. I have, this group chat where we can like still connect, even though we haven't literally seen each other in such a long time. So we have these things, and I'm grateful that I have that. Yeah, like I remember I used to do entries in my Notion where I'm like, I'm grateful for tech, but like that's just a very broad way of saying I'm grateful because it allows me to have these relationships. Like me and you, a perfect example. This podcast is called Technically Together. That's why.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Technically, I'm Rudolph, but go on.
You went the whole show without mentioning it, and
Because I was listening and I glanced up, and then all I saw was my nose, which was red, and I'm like, man. Okay,
you know
anyway, go
what?
on.
Okay, I would. There's gonna be a parallel universe where you never mentioned it, and you would have been surprised that there were no comments on it whatsoever. Just like we were talking about earlier.
I notice it. It's red.
And that is the in a nutshell, that is the creator conundrum of no one notices
Yeah,
it but me.
yeah,
What are you
yeah.
grateful for?
Um,
We should end every episode like this.
a lot of things. Unknowingly, I figured out a flow during the pandemic because being still for a long time, which I had not intended to do, sort of gives you like a sense of routine, which I never got. I'm grateful for relationships that persist despite distance. But I'm
Hi.
also grateful for I'm also grateful for, I mean, having a house that has space, really.
Mm-hmm.
And a family that doesn't drive me crazy.
I should
More
add
than
that. I should add
normal.
that to mine too. That's
I mean, more than normal crazy, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
there
Well,
are apparently there are people who have incredibly crazy family dynamic. I'm not saying my family's perfect. I'm not saying like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy with my family. I
but
mean,
you
I
know
am
what?
happy with family. You know what I mean? Like,
But you know,
I've
in
heard stories
perspective.
from them.
But you know what? Also in perspective, I if I can, I'm kind of speaking for the both of us, but I think you'll agree with this. We both have wildly supportive families for what we
I
do.
know exactly. I'm like, man, mm. It's like I am very lucky. We are very lucky in that, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Coming from law school and me going to my dad, like, I want to, start writing on the internet. That wasn't like,
I told my dad I wanted to be a poet once, and he almost had a heart attack.
I mean, that wasn't like the easiest pill to swallow, but
Sure.
like, it was, I mean, I mean, to be fair though, it was my dad who kept pushing for me to go solo
Yeah.
more than anyone. So probably it was like the levels probably would be like you and then him very closely,
Mm-hmm.
very, very closely. So I was like, that's nice. But I mean, again, coming from a family where my dad's a lawyer and my sister's a doctor and my brother's going to be a lawyer and I was in law school, like that wasn't the easiest jump, but they were very supportive, all things considered. But yeah, I've heard horror stories of being stuck with family that just like even I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And so I am very thankful for the sanity in this house and being on the same page as my family. We were raised as like being on the same page, it seems. And I am thankful for that because I realize that not all people are the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am a very different person from my siblings and my parents, but like, more or less, we're on the same page. We all believe that the pandemic is happening, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm very grateful for that.
Notice I did
Uh,
not say I'm grateful to be vaccinated. And the reason why I didn't say that is because it should be a given.
yeah,
But
it's not.
yeah, but for some people it's
So
not.
we don't
So
know when that's gonna happen for us,
yeah.
by the way. So
Which is the big thing. Like I'm really hoping that it's nuts because this podcast is going long, but we've been gone for like a month. By the time we have a chance to see each other, it will have been almost 2 years since we have seen each other. Because I think the most probable time that we'll see each other is when Kyle's wedding happens in December. That's the most probable time that we'll see each other
Oh,
because you
and
should be there.
honestly, like,
They
I mean,
want you
if we
there real
have to
bad.
go to a show, if we have to go like cover something or do something, I'm like literally willing to fly there to get a vaccine and then fly to wherever we're going.
Yeah, that might be.
I'm literally like, so someone just messaged me last night and they were like, you realize that like if you're a tourist in the US, you can get vaccinated now.
Yeah. I mean, you could feasibly come here. Like, okay, I have no faith that Europe will be open to US tourism. They're saying that it could happen soon, but I honestly don't think it will happen. Definitely not until after MWC. And even then, I have my thoughts as to why I don't really want to go. But IFA, absolutely. By then, more than likely. So yeah. But I think like, at least for us, the absolute time that we would want to get together here is because we're going to go to Kyle's wedding. So I would say that is the moment that I think we're most probably going to finally see each other again. But by then, it will be December, and we last saw each other in January last year. So that will be almost 2 years. It can't happen soon enough, and I know that
I need abs.
What do you think I'm doing? You always roll your eyes when I say I want to look a certain way with the next time I see you.
I want abs.
Yeah, well, I do too. So there you go. Because whenever I say like, I want to look vastly different when you see me next than when you last saw me, like if we will not have seen each other for 2 years, there better have been something drastically different after 2 years.
I mean, those like latex suits that has abs.
No. Will not do that. I'm putting the work in. And even my homie who was at the gym, he works there. He was like looking good on the squats, and I was like, nice. Like my first gym compliment. So I was happy about that. But yeah, can't happen soon enough. And I had these hopes that you would be able to come by and get vaccinated for my birthday, but who the hell knows?
Yeah. Anyway, thank you. That's
oh, you're going to end it that way. Okay.
Yeah. No, yeah, I guess at this point, it's good to look back and be grateful despite and in spite of all these things. It's an understatement of the last 2 years to say that so much can happen in a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, everyone make sure to be grateful out there and
wear a mask.
Some of the listeners
while
like, oh,
grateful.
they really trailed off in the last 15 minutes there, didn't they?
And that was our episode of Technically Together. Ran a little long, but thank you for being with us. We're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Until next week, hopefully.